Let's fast forward. You're at the University of Chicago.
Yeah, maybe I should say why I chose the University of Chicago, because in those days, all the people from the math team who were interested in mathematics, they all went to Harvard. But I had this failing. I had a lot of trouble getting up in the morning. I would always sleep very late. And so I didn't want to go to a college where classroom attendance was compulsory, as it was, or it's still in those days. But the University of Chicago, in one of their advertisements for the college, was that nothing counted in a course except for the final exam. And I felt I could then do that. I wouldn't have to go. And of course, it had a very good reputation because in those days, the atom bomb, and it was all of that. So that's how I got to the University of Chicago. So once I got to the University of Chicago, after a while, I, of course, drifted to Zygmunds, because that was the kind of analysis that...
Now, maybe that's not such a simple story, right? Whom did you meet? What did you consider?
The first 2 years, I was in what was called the college, which was the undergraduate part. There was a one math course that you had to pass, in which I placed out of in the college. It was sort of very general, very soft, very general mathematics, a little bit about the definitions of rings and fields and groups and sets. So there was nothing challenging there. So I decided to try to take some graduate courses while I was an undergraduate. And I took a course with a Spaniard who was a topologist, who later went to Berkeley from Chicago. And this was a soft course in functional analysis. And it culminated with the Stone-Weierstrass approximation theorem. I liked it, but I was not enthralled by that. But except for that, I didn't have much contact. And then after 2 years at Chicago, I had to go back, and because my parents refused to support me anymore. They said they would only support me if I went to Columbia, because we lived in New York. So I had to go to Columbia, but not as an undergraduate, but as in their extension school. So I spent a year there, and I took some very good courses, actually, because they let me do anything because I wasn't a degree student. So I took a course with Harishchandra, who was then at Columbia, and a course with Lorch, which was a nice course, even a course with Sammy Eilenberg, but I didn't understand anything. I mean, Sammy Eilenberg was lecturing. He had just written a book, or was just writing a book, and on topology. I think it was with MacLean. And it was about axiomatic algebraic topology, and he started off right away with the axioms and discussed. They make sense to you only if you really understand the subject, and of course, so I did. Anyway, so when I came back to Chicago, the year afterwards, I was able to get a fellowship. So I came back to Chicago, and I immediately sort of drifted into the orbit of Zygmunt. And then I took a course with Zygmunt. It was a course on approximation theory. And it was very elementary. So there was the circle, the functions on the circle, and there were trigonometric polynomials. And the question is, how well can you approximate a function by trigonometric polynomials, and how quickly does it work? Well, of course, if it's in the L2 norm, it's the partial sums of the Fourier series, and that's clear. So what happens if you're trying to do the best approximation for degree n of a polynomial, but in the sup norm? And there were sort of classical theorems about this and other theorems, and the course was made up. So after about a month, Zygmunt said, well, there's this following very interesting problem. He said, okay, so if you have a continuous function, you can talk about the polynomial of degree n, the trigonometric polynomial, which is the best approximation in the L infinity norm. It turns out it's unique, okay? That's one of the theorems you can prove, okay? Now, here's the question. Suppose a function is not merely continuous, but is differentiable and has a derivative which is continuous. Take this sequence of approximating functions. Do the derivatives, the sequence of derivatives, converge uniformly to the function? He said that's a very interesting and difficult problem. So I thought about it a little bit. I don't know. I paid close attention to what he had said early on, of course, which was something about the delayed means, which are the things where you approximate. So the Lavallee-Poussin delayed means. And then I realized that by using these things, you could give almost a 3-line proof of this theorem.
Yeah.
So I came to Zygmunt and I said, Professor Zygmunt, you know the question that you raised? I think it has a simple answer. He said, no.
Uh-huh.
Now think about it again. But he didn't want. So then I came back and I said, yeah, no. And I told him, and so then he was very nice about it. And then a few days later, he said, you're a real mathematician. And so that was a very, very nice thing.